Manish Gulati, Principal Architect for MOFA Studios, and we stand for Manifestation of Fluid Architecture. We've been around for the last 15 years now. We started our practice way back in 2002, and we've been present in pretty much all verticals. We've designed right from stadiums down to private residences, and covered pretty much the entire gamut of hospitality, and we specialize in public spaces, institutions, and we have a presence pan-India in terms of all the projects that we do. The client came with a clear idea in terms of number of bedrooms or the spaces that they're looking for, but obviously the overall design narrative or the story developed through the discussions itself. In fact, it was the first meeting itself where we kind of froze the basic concept. During the introduction meeting, we hadn't even frozen on whether we were doing the project or not, and I think that nailed the basic concept itself. And it was the forthcomingness of the client in terms of our ideas, that what we were looking at, that prompted us to even take up the project. So the plot is situated in a place called Malviya Nagar in South Delhi. It's a fairly dense kind of neighborhood. So you've got these service roads, and it's a corner plot, which is about 260 square yard is what is the standard which is used in Delhi, and with a fairly large kind of a hospital on the opposite end. In terms of the direction, it faces north. The larger side of the plot faces west, a lot of sunlight coming in from this side. There's a series of trees which kind of flank this area, which is part of the hospital compound. A couple of trees that were here which we tried to retain itself. So as far as the neighborhood is concerned, this house really didn't have much to see. The client did not want to look on this side anywhere. There are no pleasant views here. One side is a blank wall. So all we were looking at was a house which is inward looking. That pretty much evolved where the site is. This is the sketch that came about. And when I make a sketch like this, it basically means that the entire mass of the house is towards the outside. And we have an internal courtyard which is inspired from the traditional houses of Rajasthan and in Gujarat, called them the pole houses. So we came up with this crazy idea of telling him that why don't he build a swimming pool. He wanted a recreational activity with a glass floor, which brings in the light, the filtered light, all throughout from the top. So that is what the house became. The circulation for the entire house was taken in on the shorter side. Reason being that this being the west, there's a lot of sunlight and a lot of heat percolation that happens from here, from all sides. So idea was to create this entire wall or entire facade, which in a way takes care of the sun that comes in from here. And having mass of staircases, circulations, that kind of help protect the rest of the house. So looking at the overall basement, which goes down, one thing we did was carved out a kind of a sunken court, and leaving a gap, a large gap here. This became the swimming pool on the ground floor, and building up floors from here, we had an interesting skylight which literally brought in a lot of light into this house, and through this water which we have, the entire basement pretty much got filled with tremendous amount of light. And adding that, we added a lot of trees, landscape elements into the sunken court. The dining room was done as one dining room for the entire house, not separated, because they all eat together. We insisted upon the fact that being in an urban scenario, you may have your private bedroom spaces, but dining is one activity that one should get together at least once a day. So in this whole large volume, we kind of suspended a glass floor. And this room itself becomes a lounge, which is like an open space in the middle of everywhere. And this kind of added to that semi-public, or a domain where friends can be called in and they have a small gathering of watching TV and other things. So the evolution of the facade, in this case, as we talked about it being the western facade, what was important for us was to see this entire site in the form of this block, this box that sits and is seen from the corner. The central part, which is where we put the staircases and the circulation on the inside, has windows which are non-approachable in terms of opening and everything. So here we kind of played around. A certain part of the front of the house takes care of toilets and services, so all the toilets are kind of flanked here. There is a kind of set of bedrooms on this side. So in three parts, we were dealing with the facade and the set of materials which were reflective of all of that. The area which is with the staircase and the circulation being an open space and high volumes, we used exposed concrete panels out here, which was cast on site. There was a kind of a play of windows which was done. Now, keeping in mind each of these windows were framing the view to the outside. As mentioned, there was a tree that we were looking at, or a series of trees outside. So each of these windows frames a part of that tree. So in fact, when you look at the house from inside, all you get is these framed views of the trees. Over a series of discussion with the client, we came up, because we are a firm which looks into a lot of energy consciousness, upcycling of waste materials. So here we suggested pallet wood to them. These shipping pallets are something which is a throwaway material, and we've been using them in a series of projects in various forms in the other. Coming to the northern side, thankfully, the local bylaws give us leeways of projecting large balconies, which are an 8-feet balcony. And then it kind of stops to only 3-feet balconies on the upper side. We use this to our advantage, where we said, okay, the ground floor, being the master bedroom, gets this large balcony, which is again a glass floor, because it was giving light to the sunken court below. And this is where we have the light going into the sunken court. The upper part, which we call the skyline, extremely important in all our projects. We wanted to build like a terrace garden, because we lost out on the garden space. There is no space. So the entire terrace is kind of dedicated to creating this large green space for the entire family, which reflects from the outside as a framed garden. I realized by the time we went on top, you can actually see Qutub Minar from one side, you can see Lotus Temple or the Baha'i Temple from the other side. So it kind of connects, and it may seem like a dense urban scenario, but at that level, it connects to the rest of Delhi. And we had some fantastic views, sunset views. I mean, a lot of times we had cups of coffee on the terrace. We built a skylight, which is for the rest of the house, strong enough for people, at least 10 to 12 people, to sit on top and have cups of tea. So here again, we reversed the whole concept, created a glass floor, where you're sitting on top of Delhi in this urban scenario where from the road you can't see anything but muck and smog and pollution. But at that level, you're able to connect with 360-degree views of the entire Delhi. And that, just opened up the entire house on top from the rest of the world. So as I was explaining earlier, this is the main approach road from here, and you literally see the house from the corner. So you see this as this kind of a box, which is like this urban box sitting there with these punctures and planes. And we created this sunken court on the front side. So that posed us a challenge of creating this bridge which connects to the main house, created this large 20-feet door as a gesture to a large kind of an opening into this box, a puncture there. And we utilized the area under the bridge for the toilet itself for the basement. So that's pretty much how the front facade kind of works, with these balconies which project out and still give that privacy to the owners inside. So as we enter the house, pretty much from the front side, we come into these areas which are the central open space as we talked about it. The courtyard, the base of it is the swimming pool which gives light into the basement. Basement becomes a fairly public domain for parties and get-togethers, for large gatherings. opening onto the sunken court on the front side. The front side of this part is all master bedrooms looking onto the central courtyard. The lower floor is a double height dining room, which is gathering of literally 12 members of the family. There are 9 bedrooms in the entire house. And the kids' rooms come on the other side. The terrace is dedicated for all the green landscape, outdoor seating. So for winters, I mean, Delhi's sun in winters, it's a rarity. So for those 2 months, this terrace is fairly active for all the outdoor activity. That's a floating lounge, which is again a glass floor, sitting in the middle of the entire space. We had a challenge of air conditioning out here. As you will see, that there is this duct that we hung on top, which becomes a light fixture and an AC duct itself. We looked at a lot of raw finishes, so all the slabs, all the structural elements were done as flat slabs, exposed concrete, and which is like a permanent finish. Interiors were done with the basic marble, and the whole tone of the house is fairly natural materials of wood with grey neutral shades of natural materials that come in. It's like a game, you know, how much square feet area am I utilizing in best possible manner in the lowest budget. So, and that has become now a high for the firm to kind of, we tell the client that, okay, whatever your budget is, slash it down by 20%. And, you know, we'll do it even 15% less than that. And give us the area, and we will utilize every square inch of that plot, of that house that you're giving, into something that is utilizable. And that is exactly what we learned in this house, to utilize those resources of space and funds.